color. Get my papers in order. I had to wear a bright shirt today because the cover of the book was so dark, but the book is kind of dark itself. So I would say if you like dark fantasy, I would qualify this as dark fantasy. On the back, it's interesting because on the back it says, Wraiths has short chapters, fast paced, and is aimed at adults. And usually when I think of something that is fast paced and has short chapters, I think middle grade. No, this is not a middle grade book. Do not give this to anyone under 18. Also, it doesn't have any trigger warnings, but it probably should, because it focuses, there's a lot of themes on so the story goes back and forth between Soulmaker and Malvena. I think I'm saying that correctly. But Soulmaker is an 18-year-old troll, and he is running away from a place that has kept him as a slave. And one of his duties is collecting eggs, but that's actually like the easiest of his jobs. His main duties, there is an evil woman that is living in the big house, and she kind of controls everything, and she has some guards that live in the big house with her, and they are part of her personal harem, and they are not allowed to interact sexually with any of the other women, but the boys and men are fine, and Soulmaker is one of their favorites to entertain with. From what I understand, if I'm remembering it correctly, he was 12 or 13 when they brought him into the big house to start serving the other men. So yeah, not a book for children. Do not give this to somebody who's under 18. Personally, because of the themes, I didn't really like the book, but I think it's an important book. I think it's important that it exists, because I think that we do a disservice if we pretend that those kind of things aren't happening in our own world. And Malvena, it's hard for me to decide between Soulmaker and Malvena which ones are my favorite characters, because Soulmaker, he kind of starts to realize that he has some kind of power as far as the choices he makes. He can choose to stay, he can choose to leave, and he chooses to leave. He chooses to run away. And that's how he meets Malvena. And Malvena promises him protection and says she will take care of him. And expects nothing, there's no romance between the two of them. Malvena's an elf, he's a troll. Not that those two couldn't get together, but Malvena views him less as a potential partner and more of a surrogate son. So there's a wonderful kind of guardian-child relationship between the two of them, and they quickly, they don't even really know each other very well, but they quickly develop a mutual respect and admiration for one another, for their strength and their characters. I wish everybody had a Malvena in their life, because she was just she's such a tenacious protector, and she just really comes to life in the book. I wish I could have gotten to know, when it says it's fast-paced, it's fast-paced. There is no time for breathing in this book, and it's only 95 pages long, and every page it changes point of view. It says short chapters, but it's not. There's one page per chapter. It's this page is Soulmaker, and then the very next page is from Melvena's point of view, and then it goes back and forth between Soulmaker's point of view and Melvena's point of view, page by page. So one page is one person, the next page is the second person, and back and forth. And it's interesting because I thought that was going to bother me, honestly. I really thought, like, there's no way I'm going to like this back and forth. But the back and forth was actually really fascinating to see they're both in like these different battles, and seeing it from both in real time from both point of views is really kind of cool. And I actually liked it a lot more than I thought I would have. I'd have liked to have spent a little bit more time with the other characters, not necessarily from a point of view situation, because there were innkeepers that knew Melvena very well, and you don't know any of them, so you don't really develop an attachment of them. They're basically mentioned by name, and then it's Melvena coming up and saying, "Hey, what happened?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, they came and took the boy," and she's off to the rescue. And that's all you know about the innkeeper. And then you get back to the village where Soulmaker was taken, and Melvena enters into the village, and as she's trying to rescue Soulmaker, he's kind of introducing her, he's kind of talking about the different people, and every once in a while he introduces her to another troll or another elf, and you don't really get to know those characters because it's so focused in on Soulmaker and Melvena and the action that's happening. So even when they're rescuing someone that Soulmaker knows, and he gives a brief explanation of who this person is, you don't really get a chance to care whether that person lives or dies, and whether they succeed in saving them or not. And there's this whole battle between the slaves and the woman and her guards, and the the creatures that she controlled, and you don't really, like I said, you don't really get a chance to sympathize with anyone or get to know anyone or worry about whether they survive or die. The only ones you're really worried about is Soulmaker and Melvena. But I do like the format of going back and forth, in this case, back and forth between Melvena and Soulmaker. I do like, it doesn't focus on the child exploitation as a positive light, which is always a bonus. Anyone who writes something that paints child exploitation in a positive light should not be writing at all. And this doesn't. Melvena she starts off being a protector and guardian for Soulmaker, and then Soulmaker kind of becomes the Melvena for the other slaves in the village, and it takes them a while to realize that they are free from what their lives have been, and they claim the village as home. You know, that's all they've ever known, and so they don't know anywhere else. All they know is this village in the middle of the forest. And Soulmaker, because of his running away, he knows more than the village and the forest. He knows other villages and markets and other things because of his running into Malvena and Malvena taking him under her wing and kind of she's like, hey, we're going to go to this market and get you some proper clothes. So he's seen beyond the village, where the other villagers are like, this is just what we know, you know. But so it'll be interesting to see. It ends with them chasing the Wraiths, which are these half bird, half troll-like creatures that are hunting around the forest. They come out at night and they eat whatever they can find. And when they have a loyalty to this woman in this big house, and so when they find out that she's under attack, they are immediately upset by this. And so these are creatures that are under her control. And with Soulmaker, he's got to, you know, not only deal with the woman who is controlling all of these creatures, but then he also has to deal with the creatures themselves. And the villagers, the other slaves that are ready to fight for freedom, they also jump in to start fighting. And it'll be interesting to see, they do succeed in chasing off the Wraiths, not without casualties on both sides, but it'll be interesting to see if the Wraiths return, because they're not all gone. They're still there by the end of this book, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the villagers. Do they decide to stay in the village and take over the village themselves? Do they decide, hey, let's go find these other towns and markets and whatnot? Soulmaker, with his newfound freedom, decides he wants to. He actually decides to have a plan for his life. He starts to allow himself to dream about what his life could be like now that he's free, and I love that for him. There is magic, and that's another thing. I like that there's magic in this universe. It's not just, okay, there's a troll and there's an elf. Of course there should be magic. You would expect that there would be magic, and there is, but it kind of came as a pleasant surprise to me that there was magic. Malvena has healing magic, and she does a quick lesson with Soulmaker to teach him a light spell, and figures, you know, I didn't get a chance to really properly teach him. I just gave him the basics. Hopefully he can do something with that, and he actually surpasses what she's able to do with that spell and lights up an entire room to the point that it's almost blinding to some of the people that are with him. And as soon as their eyes are adjusted, it's like daylight has entered this cave, and it's shining all around. And so I'm interested. I'm interested to see how powerful Soulmaker's magic actually is, and if it has anything to do with his name, because I believe Soulmaker means sun maker or something to that effect. I'm not sure, but it's a very short, small book, and it's very deceptive. It looks like it would be a nice, easy, lighthearted read. It, like I said, it's dark, the topics are heavy, but you know, and when I say I didn't like the book, I didn't like the book because it made me uncomfortable, and it's one of those that forces you to acknowledge that this kind of stuff does happen in our world, and it's something that needs to be talked about, it needs to be addressed, it needs to be taken care of. And ignoring it is not going to make it go away, unfortunately. So like I said, I like the bouncing between the two characters. I like that she was, Annica Dehlin, the author, was willing and brave enough to write such a book and say, hey, this is not right, and this should be addressed. And yeah, I would definitely recommend, I would definitely recommend getting this book. If you're interested in short, dark fantasy, I'm interested to see what happens to Soulmaker, and how he progresses with his new freedom and his new power. So, if you want a copy of the book, I will leave a link in the description box below. There will also be a link for any of my books if you're interested in middle grade fantasy that is appropriate for 8 to 12-year-olds. They have a Disney meets Goosebumps kind of vibe to them. Links for those will be in the description. And if you have a book that you would like me to consider and review on this channel, you can send your books to me, Joe Miller, P.O. Box 40, Limestone, Tennessee 37681. The address will be in the description below as well. For anybody who has missed my first video, I do have a promise that I make, that I will never attack the writer. I will attack your characters, I will attack your storyline, but I will not attack the writers. So, by all means, send me books. I love reading books, and if I can get paid to read books, I will do it. So, yeah. Like and subscribe so you don't miss any other content from us, and we'll see you next time.